Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Happy Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Sierra, and today we are joined by my good friend, Dr. Chad Fleming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and look forward to sitting and visiting with you.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic. I'll go ahead and read Dr. Fleming's bio. So Dr. Chad Fleming graduated from the Northeastern State University, Oklahoma College of Optometry. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 2002. And upon graduating, he actually went into private practice and is now the CEO of a 9-doctor, 5-location practice based in Wichita, Kansas, called Wichita Optometry. Along with practicing optometry, if that wasn't enough, Dr. Fleming has actually worked as a consultant for companies like Rev360, Illuma, Weave, iMatrix, AOA Excel, and is the founder of Optometry CEO and Partners in Profit. He has been featured in numerous professional journals and the Wall Street Journal. And when Dr. Fleming is not involved with optometry, he spends time with his wife of 25 years and his 3 children. It's great to have you on the show. How is it coming in from Wichita?
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that it was a pleasant, smooth trip, but as I left Wichita, there were tornadoes hitting the ground, and I was lucky to take off getting out of Wichita, getting to Denver. So it was a little bit of a choppy ride, a little bit of delays, but I'm eventually made it here.
Have you always been in Wichita?
Wichita and surrounding areas. So I grew up hour west of Wichita, out in the country, but we went to schools that I went to were within the city of, I guess it would be a large town of 65, 70,000 people. So yeah.
Okay.
Been around the Wichita area, and so is my wife. So we're from around the area. But when I went off to optometry school, that was down in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start from the beginning. You were not born an optometrist. You eventually became that. So let's go back to the beginning to how did you get into optometry, and what was that process like?
I got into optometry because my other route, it was a plan B. My plan B started in optometry. I wanted to be an eye doctor when I was in 6th grade. So it's kind of funny because I have a 5th grader, a 7th grader, and a 3rd grader. And so about in that 5th, 6th grade year, I came home, told my mom, I'm going to be an eye doctor. And she smiled, and she knew I was highly driven in anything that I did. And to this day, she says, I knew that you would be where you're at today. And so that sparked my interest in optometry, but when I was growing up at those ages and even into high school, into college, academics was second place to athletics. And so I enjoyed athletics from basketball and football, played a lot of that, to golf. And so I ended up looking and having a vision of potentially playing professional golf. And after college, I could have gone on to the mini tours and done some of that. And I decided, being a family man, that I wanted a family, I wanted to settle down, and it made more sense to do something like optometry. I had been working in optometry offices in high school and then into college. So that kind of paved my way to a better, more stable current time and future. And so that's how I made my decision with that.
So it sounds like there was kind of this fork in the road where you had to choose between going all in on sports and going all in on academics.
That's a good question. I realized getting into college that I'd actually have to start studying because I went through high school with just showing up, taking tests, and I did all right in college. I got a rude awakening of that. So I did have to choose that I better get serious about academics and start going in that direction. So yes, I did make that decision, and ended up 3 years into my college athletic career, I decided I really got to take this serious and start going down the road of optometry, science, everything that needed to be done to get the prerequisites to get into optometry school.
And what about being an eye doctor was super attractive to you?
Being an eye doctor, my decision, the fork in the road was, did I want to be an ophthalmologist or an optometrist? And the biggest thing, the glaring reason I wanted to go into optometry was I wanted the interaction and patient relationships long term. I wanted to sit in the clinic, interact with people, not just from a clinical standpoint, but a relational standpoint, and develop relationships of taking care people for years. And so that's where I drifted from a surgical, more being in a surgical suite, to being in optometry of something to where it's a long-term relationship with the patient.
Long-term relationship with the patient, and that's something you're really good at. I've heard from your staff and heard about your practice. It's a huge emphasis for you guys, and I think that's what keeps you guys growing and keeps the patients coming back. But those practices, same thing, didn't pop out of thin air, right? You had to actually build those, right? So you graduate optometry school. Do you go straight into private practice ownership, or do you work somewhere else for a while?
That's a great question. At the time, which you read, I graduated in 2002, and now it's even more prominent. Most students are not going into private practice, and even back then, 90% of students were 80%. I don't have an exact statistic, but it was a high percentage of students that, because the students' loans were high, they went to more of a commercial establishment so they could get that immediate payoff from a dollar standpoint to pay back their loans. Well, in private practice, it's an investment over time. I call it the S curve when I talk to students. And so we'll have students that rotate through the practice currently that I get to invest in and mentor. And then when we're looking to hire somebody, I'll talk about the S curve, that you may start out a little bit less from a salary standpoint to working to where you will surpass, if you stick with us, you will surpass what students are getting paid once they graduate and get out into school, what the averages are. And so in that, for me, business, I love, that's funny, backing up, had I not gone into optometry, or had that not worked, I would probably be on Wall Street or working, running a company, because I really enjoy that aspect. But in 2002, I knew that I wanted to be an owner. I knew that I wanted to scale. There were some things that I had a vision of and could see where I wanted to be. And so it made it easy for me to walk into a practice and say, I want to work for a year. Let's kind of the honeymoon phase, or the dating phase. And then after a year, it's either a good match or we need to part. So I had very clear direction that I wanted to head. I didn't want to sit and spend years waiting for a potential buy-in, potential part of the business. I wanted to buy in, be part of the business, and then start strategizing of what does that look like then as the business scales.
We're going to talk about some of the challenges in being in healthcare and in owning a practice. I want to start off, though, with what is awesome about it. What have you loved most about being a practice owner?
Getting to be in the driver's seat and getting to, like the old saying that they used to have, I think it was on ABC Sports, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And when you're the one making those decisions, you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, and you get to battle through the difficulties of what practice brings for you. And I like being in that quarterback spot. I like being in that give me the ball at the end of the game type of situation. It just plays right into who I am and what I enjoy doing. And so, not that I can't work for somebody, but I just enjoy working for myself, being self-employed with my partners that I have, because I'm very intentional. Any businesses that I venture into, I don't want to do them alone. I like doing them in community. I like the dynamics of relationships in that. I like putting people around me that complement my weaknesses. And so I think that's a great leadership and business, best practice, to put people around you that you are stronger together, that are a synergistic relationship. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that was kind of the direction I was thinking.
Yeah, it answers it really well. Well, and tell me about the journey of going from owning one practice to 5, and how is that different?
What was difficult, you've asked for, and I'm a transparency. I don't like the proverbial, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you doing? I'm doing great. That just doesn't ring to me. It's like, what's going on the inside? Let's talk at the next level. And I think the next level, the truth of it is that I had to be patient. I went for many years not being able to scale because I had a senior partner, and to this day we have a very respectful relationship with each other. But at the time, we had two different visions of what the practice looked like. His vision, we had three partners. There was me, middle partner who was just kind of in the middle, just a plug and chug guy, and then the senior partner who had a way that he wanted to do that and how he did not want more than one location. And so we fought that for a while. I wrestled with the fact, is this a good fit for me? And through my prayer life, personal life, I decided to be patient and to wait until I had the opportunity to buy the senior partner out, understanding the reality of where I was, and then just be prepared. A lot of people, what they do is they say, well, this isn't a good fit, so I'm going to go someplace else. And then it's like, well, I don't like what's going on here, so I go someplace else. I took the different approach that I will have a day that I will be the decision maker. I will be the leader. I will call the shots, and I want to prepare for that. So I spent a lot of quiet time behind closed doors preparing for that moment. And so what that did is that allowed me to scale, and I want to hopefully say make less mistakes and be able to scale much more profitable, much quicker than had I scaled when I was 10 years prior. So instead of fighting that battle, or instead of leaving that situation, I decided to make the best of that situation, and also say, you know what, it's like an athletic team. We're building here. We're building. So I was very intentional. What are we building? We're getting the support system of our EHR. We're getting the support system of various technologies. We're getting the support system how we're going to do, so that when we scale, it's not we're inventing the wheel then. It's like, hey, this was already ready. So in 2016, we bought him out, and boom, you'll look at our timeline, and we started acquiring practices. Well, usually when you acquire practices at that rapid pace, there's a great debt load that you have to take on because you have to leverage yourself. Well, I was ready for it. We didn't leverage like that. We were prepared for those negotiations, prepared for making right purchases. And so what that did is that excelled us into profitability, that excelled us into 5 locations, not easily, but I would say very successfully. As I watch business people scale things, it's not hard, it's not easy, it's risky. And so I felt like we did it in a way that was very profitable and very good for patients and good for doctors coming on board. So that's kind of that journey of having to be patient. I think that's the moral of that story. Is a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people just in general, don't want to be patient, don't want to wait it out. And so 10 years later, they wonder why they're still in the same spot. And because there's got to be a better spot for me, so I'm going to jump around, I'm going to look around. And the reason I know that is I get calls nowadays of people who were me 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and they want to just, hey, can I ask you some questions? I need some insight.
Wow. That was a lot, and but it was a brilliant answer. I love when you talk about the specifics about the business strategy that goes into it, because I think a lot of people not overlook that, but aren't prepared for it. And I love that you talked about the preparation and doing the mental legwork ahead of that, so that when the time comes and the opportunity arises, you are ready to strike and you are ready for the moment. And I think that's a huge takeaway for me. Going back into your practices, you've built a financially successful practice, right? That is operating well from a business perspective. And then you have the other side of that coin, which is the cultural perspective of the practice. Do your patients love coming in? Do your staff love working there? Do you love working there? Is it a place that you enjoy going into, and that you feel happy with? What is your practice good at from a culture and experience perspective?
You said the key word. I would say that our competitive advantage is our culture. There's in Wichita, as there is anywhere else in a cities, there's multiple places that people can choose from. And the medicine is typically on par, the same. There's some great doctors that don't work at our place that patients can get great care for. They can go and they can get the glasses, they can get the lenses, they can be outfitted perfectly. But it's the culture, and it's what I talk about with our staff and specifically with our doctors. I spend a lot of time investing in our doctors, investing in what they create, how they say things. Communication for the last, I don't know how many years, the number one thing that we will be the best at in Wichita is communication. If we can communicate to each other and we can communicate to patients in a way that is a dialogue and not a monologue, we are going to exceed people's expectations without even trying. And so when a doctor comes in, I will meet with them once a week for about a year and spend time with them investing in, I'll answer questions about different cases that they have from the clinical side, but I'm focusing on culture. What are you saying to patients? How are you interacting with patients? I will send patients from me, from the CEO, a 5-question, how did you interact with your doctor? Did your doctor, did you feel like they addressed your main complaint? Did you feel like they listened to you? Do you feel like they spent time with you? Did you feel cared for? Then I get a lot of good feedback that I put together in my one-on-ones with the doctors, and just say, hey, let's talk a little bit about why patients are feeling rushed. And it's different for me after 20 years. I can rush a patient because I have a relationship with them. And I know what to do and what not to do to make 5 minutes with that patient feel like they've been completely heard. They feel like I've cared for them, and I have, but it's only been 5 minutes. You have to realize the flip side of that is that you have no relationship. So what happens is if they feel rushed, they feel like you don't care. And so we walk through stuff like that. So our culture is by far the happiest thing, the thing I look forward to, because I tell staff all the time, you're making an impression on somebody. And when they come off of their phones, out of the world, most likely they're full of anxiety. They're full of things not going their way. They're having a difficult time. Simple things of smiling, simple things of saying, I'm glad you're here, simple things of listening can make that person, you've made a difference in their life. And if they never come back to our practice again, but we've made a positive impression on their heart, that's the win. The money, the finances, all of that, the practice will take care of itself. We will be provided for if we care for people and keep that at the front of our focus. And so I spend a lot of time with that from the top down.
And I think the results show, right? You have patients that love coming back, and you have staff that love working there too, right? And that's an incredible legacy. And the last question that I have is somebody who's listening to this who is, maybe a doctor or some other healthcare professional that is getting started, and they're either in school or a resident or a couple of years out of school, and they want to get to a spot that you're at and have the kind of practices that you have. What would you tell them?
Be patient. I think that's the hardest thing, and that goes counter current to my personality, counter current to everything. But to build something that has a strong foundation and that stands and that gives you the margin in life and the type of lifestyle that you want and where you want to go, doesn't happen overnight. So you have to be patient in that. You have to know where you're going. So spend time on the front side, putting down on purpose. Use something, use a note-taking device, use a storage device like an Evernote, a Notion, a DevonThink, something like that, and just comb out what a vision of where you want to go, what your destination looks like, so that as you're on the journey and you get the storms and you feel like you're not headed in that direction, you can stay the course. Because I think that's the biggest thing I see people doing is they want to speed up because we live in a day and age where everything is just instant. And yeah, sometimes things like the lottery, sometimes it'll all happen overnight. Most things don't. Most things you need to be patient, you need to build on, and you need to have a vision of where your destination is. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're never gonna end up where you want to end up.
Well, on that note, I so appreciate you joining with us. I learned a ton, and I'm sure the audience is going to learn a ton as well. What's next for Wichita Optometry and for you?
Right now we are in what I call a steady state strategy. And what that is we've been scaling for a while. Now it's time to take the 5 locations and maximize the 5 locations as far as where they need to be in just development, growth, and working seamlessly as a group of 5 locations and not individuals. Because when they work seamlessly, you have a much more efficient system than when they're working independent of each other. And so that's what's next, is just working. And that's hard for me because I want to go and create, I want to build, I want to do things like that. But I think the best, I go away once a year to have by myself. I actually went to Colorado in an Airbnb, and it's a 3-day strategy meeting, and it's in October. And I look at what does the next year look like for Wichita Optometry, and I have a vision and a plan. And I walked away at peace with this year just needs to be a steady state strategy. And so that's what's next for Wichita Optometry. So nothing too exciting, but it's to stabilize that foundation so that then we can continue to scale.
Isn't that the concept that the Bill Gates does, the Think Retreat? I've heard about this before, where you kind of lock yourself in you or your partners in a cabin for a day or 2 or 3, and really do a strategic planning and a deep dive. I've actually done this before and found it super beneficial.
Yeah,
right.
It's very beneficial, and you will find a lot of great leaders, and that's where I got that concept from. Is there's a lot of great leaders out there that you need all of that time, 90% of your time, doing stuff like that, so the 10% can be maximized in your decision making and your leadership in the direction that you go. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining the show today, and thank you to everybody who has been joining us and listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and follow us and subscribe, and until next time, stay happy.